we've had a lot of questions from people about this thing called the 5% rule. They say that if Gary Johnson and the Libertarian Party got 5% of the vote nationally, it would end the two-party hold on the election system in America. Is that true? I wanted to find out, and here's what I found. In America, we have two major parties. That's the actual distinction of the Republican and the Democratic parties. They're called major parties. We also have what are called minor parties, though there are no minor parties actually running for office this year. And then you have alternative parties, the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, the Constitution Party, the Justice Party, etc. The distinctions are important because it all comes down to money. Have you ever noticed when you get your tax form done, there's a little box there at the end that says, would you check this box if you want to donate $1? It used to be, now it's $3 to Presidential Campaign Fund. Well, what that's really all about is public funding. When you decide to give that money, it essentially goes and is rerouted to a public fund from which the Republican Party and the Democratic parties are given public funding in order to run their elections. But in order to be eligible for that money, you have to have the distinction of a major party, 25% of the vote that means, in any presidential election, or a minor party, 5 to 24% of the vote in an election. If you're an alternative party, you're not eligible for that money unless you hit a certain threshold. It always comes back to money, right? So here's how it works. If the Libertarian Party this year, and Gary Johnson as their nominee, got 25% of the vote nationally, it would mean about $90 million in public funding that would go to the Libertarian Party retroactively for this year in 2012, but also to be used for the election in 2016. About $90 million. It's a pretty sizable chunk of money. But in order to be considered a minor party, you still get some money. If Johnson and the Libertarian Party, or Jill Stein and the Green Party, manage to get 5% of the vote, or 6%, or 10%, anywhere up to that 24% threshold, then they are officially designated a minor party. And minor parties also get a share of public funding. So it kind of depends on the percentage you get, and that's how the money's allocated. But a 5% vote nationally for the Libertarian Party for Gary Johnson would actually mean somewhere around $10 million that would go to his campaign retroactively for 2012, and it would also mean that money going ahead to 2016. So yeah, there is some truth to the idea that the 5% rule ultimately means more public funding being shared among other candidates and other parties. By the way, one more fact for you. Okay, so Ross Perot ran in 1992 as a member of the Reform Party. He didn't have a whole lot of money coming from public funding, but he was a billionaire. He didn't need it. Here's the interesting part. In 1996, because the Reform Party did so well in 92, received $29.1 million for the 96 campaign. That's the way public funds work. You perform well in one election, and that money translates into the next go-around.